That's been to a sporting event. The atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The NBA will take center stage once football stops, and people will watch the NBA playoffs and all that. But the standings are whacked out in the Western Conference. Like Oklahoma City, Memphis, and the Houston Rockets are the best teams in the conference.
You want to talk about a team with overs and no defense? The Wizards are your team. It's unbelievable. They can't make a total high enough. It's nuts.
Sports Rage tonight. Weeknights 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Louis Riddick has interviewed for every job in North America. And I'm not just talking football. I'm talking about every business in North America of any kind whatsoever. Tire companies, grocery store CEOs, shopping malls, insurance companies. What job hasn't Louis Riddick interviewed for?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
A new week begins right here, right now, live on a Monday morning on the early line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination to consume everything all across the grid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. We are here together for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time. A Monday morning, as we often and always do, to sit back in the armchair and look back on a weekend that was around the National Football League. Except this weekend, some added importance. It was the final weekend of the regular season in the 2024 National Football League campaign. So on this Monday, we reset the table for you, how the playoff landscape looks around the NFL, the spots that were had, the seeds that were clinched on a weekend around the National Football League, and even the NFL draft order. DRS, as we broke down the weekend and got ready, we made sure to let everybody know 14 of the 16 games we had around the regular season finale weekend in the NFL had some significance, either on the playoff race, those postseason seeds, or the NFL draft order. So each and every game from the final weekend of the National Football League regular season over these next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern.
Oh, we got a lot of hot topics. We do. It's a great weekend. Super Wildcard Weekend's coming up. The college football playoff resumes. It's going to be fantastic to watch it play out. But there were some wacky things that happened on Saturday and Sunday that we have to talk about. Teams blowing up their draft position. Upsets we didn't think would happen. Teams clinching the number 1 seed. Teams going to the 5 seed here despite having 14 wins on an NFL season. A lot to do it. But this is why we love Mondays. We get caught up and then we look towards the future.
Yes, we certainly do. That will be a future of the NFL postseason. That starts on Saturday with a doubleheader. A future in the college football playoff as well, and plenty more all around the landscape of sports. But DRS, we start where it all ended last night in the National Football League regular season in the Motor City. Game 272, with all the stakes and everything on the line, one you could only hope for to end out a regular season in the National Football League. The 1 seed in the NFC North divisional crown between two divisional foes, the Lions and the Vikings, who would claim the 1 seed and with a loss, who would fall to the 5 spot in the NFC postseason race. We now know all Detroit last night. The Lions looking dominant in the regular season finale in game 272. Detroit victorious 31-9 over Minnesota. The Lions end 15-2 with their second consecutive NFC North crown. And for the first time in franchise history, the first overall seed in the NFC playoff picture. The Vikings end the year 14-3, falling to the 5 spot. Detroit covers as a 2.5-point home favorite, the highest total we have seen in nearly a half decade in the National Football League. 56.5 does stay well under that number.
Jahmyr Gibbs was really good in that football game, and you see how important he is to that offense. But all throughout this game, I think many people watching, Ben, were looking at that Minnesota Vikings offense going sooner than later. It's going to eventually wake up, and they couldn't. Aaron Glenn's defensive structure for Detroit was absolutely fantastic, bringing waves of blitzes repeatedly after Sam Darnold, who's had a sensational season and some thought might be getting into that MVP. Only to find him 18 of 41 for 166 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. And I know we were all watching this game, Ben, playing out going, man, Darnold is missing some really big throws that could have been game changers that he just couldn't make. And then we go, oh, that's right, it's Sam Darnold. It's amazing what we think of a guy through 17 games or 17 weeks. Then we get to week 18 when it matters and goes, yep, that's the Darnold we know.
Yeah, there will be a lot of sweeping overreactions, as Donnie just laid out right there, for one game last night in the Motor City, but maybe it is the truer picture of the Vikings. Sam Darnold, his worst game of the season, a season low in passing yards, a season low in pass completion percentage as well. The Lions are the 1 seed, a team that has been seriously injured all year, gets the weekend off, and home field advantage through the NFC postseason is in the Motor City. The Vikings, as the 5 seed, will head out to Los Angeles on Monday night to take on the Rams. The Rams are the 4 seed. The Buccaneers, the 3 seed in the NFC playoff picture. Tampa needing to win yesterday at home to clinch a playoff spot in the NFC South divisional crown for a 4th consecutive year. It was not easy for the Buccaneers, despite being more than a 2-touchdown favorite at home against the New Orleans Saints. Tampa DRS down by double digits at the break. They storm back in the second half to win 27-19. Again, 4th consecutive NFC South divisional crown. And on the final play of regulation, Mike Evans makes history as well. A 9-yard completion to give him 1,004 receiving yards this year, his 11th consecutive season, all 11 years in the NFL with 1,000.
Yeah, you can set your clock to Mike Evans getting 1,000. And also, how many times have we seen? It's not as if Mike Evans a lot of times cruises to that 1,000 and gets it by week 11. We always see this weeks 15, 16, 17, and 18 where you got to force feed him the football, and rightfully so. Baker Mayfield said coming into this game, yes, winning is synonymous with feeding Mike Evans the football, which he wasn't getting in the first half. They were buoyed by the run game, which finished with 31 carries for 179 yards, almost 6 yards per carry, and a touchdown here. Baker made the plays that he needed to. The only shocking point is they were down double digits in this game and won here. They were minus 14.5 when the game began against a dead New Orleans team. Any given Sunday sometimes plays out in the NFL, and you almost got that. But Tampa Bay was the better football team. They made the plays when it mattered. They needed to win the game, and they did.
And they certainly did, DRS, a 4th consecutive NFC South crown. They will host the Commanders in Super Wild Card Weekend. We got to fire around now. We knew there was one spot available in the AFC in terms of that playoff landscape. It was simple. If Denver won at home against the Chiefs backups, it was the Broncos. Exactly what Denver did in Mile High, blanking KC and winning 38-zip, covering as a 10.5-point favorite.
This was one of those games that you were supposed to get correct. One team win and in, didn't have to worry about anything else. One team could care less about that football game. It was a roll from the beginning. And how about Bo Nix? 26 of 29. Started the game 18 of 18. He was sensational. 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions. That was my best bet of the day. The only upsetting part about that, Ben, should have went for 3 or 4 touchdowns as opposed to just 2 out of Bo Nix. He was great.
The Broncos back in the postseason for the first time since 2015 when Peyton Manning led them to a Super Bowl. Weekend got started on Saturday. The Baltimore Ravens, the largest favorite we had seen since 2021, laying 20 and a hook at home. Cover the number against the Cleveland Browns to win the AFC North. The Ravens victorious 35-10.
Yeah, they didn't want to tackle late in the game, and Derrick Henry got cranked up in that second half. An easy victory for the Ravens, but did it come at a cost, Ben, that we'll talk about for one of those key wide receivers?
We will certainly break it all down later on in the show. The New England Patriots, with a loss yesterday, claimed the number 1 overall pick, except Joe Milton had other ideas. The Patriots beat the Bills at home by a touchdown, outright as a 3.5-point dog, and then afterward, fire Gerard Mayo, the head coach, after only 1 season in Foxborough.
Yeah, the big winner actually is Gerard Mayo. Probably got a 5-year deal. He's going to be able to hang out for 4 years and get paid top dollar. So I don't feel bad for him, but I do feel bad for the New England Patriots fans showing up to that football game hoping to see a loss and came away with a victory. That's terrible.
A historic day in MetLife. Aaron Rodgers throws for 4 touchdown passes, more than 500 now in his career. And because the Broncos won, it wouldn't really have mattered for the Dolphins. They lose anyway, though, against the New York Jets. After the game, Tyreek Hill saying, "I'm out, bro."
Oh, we got a lot to talk about because some of these wide receivers making these business decisions, not understanding they're one of the highest paid players in the game, and you're paid to play football. You're paid to play for that team, not just say, I think it's time for me to move on, so I'll go to any team I want. Nonsense.
It is a great day to recap everything around the NFL. And how about some NBA news and a potential NBA Finals preview? OKC wins its 15th consecutive regular season game, beating the Boston Celtics by double digits. More from Sunday in the NFL next.
I know people are getting after Cole Anthony. Folks, it was a bang-bang play. You know, you got to give Cole Anthony props for diving with a loose ball. Yeah, was it a little bit, reckless? Maybe. But at the end of the day, for people to go after Cole Anthony and think this is a dirty play, you don't know ball.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this, I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text, put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, hey, I never got the text. And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Game 272, the last and final of the 2024 NFL regular season, last night on a Sunday night in the Motor City, with all of the stakes you could ever dream of for a true regular season finale in the National Football League. At stake last night between Detroit and Minnesota, the 1 seed in the NFC. The NFC North divisional crown in the loser, falling all the way to the 5 seed in a road trip to start off the postseason. It was everything we could dream of entering a game. The actual game itself, rather lopsided. But a win Detroit desperately needed and got. 31-9, the victory for the Lions against their divisional mates in the Minnesota Vikings. 2.5-point number in favor of Detroit at home. They easily cover that, ending the year 11-5 against the spread as a favorite in 16 of 17 games. DRS, one of the highest totals we had seen in nearly 5 years in the National Football League at 56.5, stays well under. A Detroit defensive performance we had not seen out of the Lions in nearly 2 months.
They were really good on defense. And if you're just correlating like week to week, you watch the San Francisco 49ers team with half of their football team out, move the football up and down the field. So you just figured the correlation was going to be Minnesota's got a way better offense than San Francisco. They should be able to move the football with ease going up against the Lions. And that didn't happen. And also, give credit to Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, that said, you know what? We'll let you get your yards on the ground. You're not going to beat us over the top. Because if you would have told me, Ben, before the game, forget about the 19 carries for Minnesota, but they would run for 120 yards for 6.3 yards per carry, I would have said Justin Jefferson probably had 10 catches for $155 and 3 touchdowns because everything was wide open because you had to sell out a little bit more to stop the run, and that didn't happen. Sam Darnold, built on timing. How many times did we see in this game, Ben, where you take a 5-step drop sitting in the pocket with blocking and nobody is open? The coverage was sensational in that secondary, which is something that Detroit didn't do particularly well through the first 17 weeks of the season. That was a real eye-opening performance. We knew Detroit is good. I knew Detroit is good. I thought they were the best team in the NFC for 3/4 of the season, then started getting injuries on defense. And you know what? I just don't know how they're actually going to recover with all these injuries. And boy, did they recover last night. That was a phenomenal effort from the defense that I didn't see coming. Entering into the game on the desk yesterday, Ben, I did think Detroit would win this game. Not enough to bet them. Took some prop bets in this game overall. But for me, the last thing I thought is 18 of 41 for Sam Darnold for under 200 yards. We thought we were going to have a ping pong match where both of these quarterbacks were at least 250 plus and multiple touchdowns on both sides. We got one total touchdown pass in that game. That's crazy.
And because of it, DRS, you mentioned the ground game for Minnesota. Really, it was more the ground game for Detroit, or overall just the player that is Jahmyr Gibbs. Look at the stat line last night for Gibbs. 23 for 139, 3 rushing scores. The only passing touchdown of the game into his arm on an angle route out of the backfield as Minnesota brought some pressure. 31 receiving yards and a score as well. Donnie, 170 scrimmage yards for Jahmyr Gibbs last night. And in total, nearly 30 touches, 28 to be exact. Again, a story of this season for Detroit. Trying to make history yet again. Trying to win a second consecutive NFC North crown after not winning a divisional championship in 3 decades. That was the case entering a season ago. Trying to hold on to that home field advantage throughout a potentially historic playoff run. The Lions in the Super Bowl era have never even played in a Super Bowl. But would it be plagued by some bad injury luck down the tail end of a season, losing key contributors on both sides of the football, like David Montgomery? Last night, it was all Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, as for that defense, it was the worst game we have seen from Sam Darnold this season. A career resurgence and renaissance in the Twin Cities. Not last night. 18 of 41, as DRS alluded to. $166, no touchdowns, no interceptions, a season low in terms of yardage and completion percentage for Sammy D. The Lions entered this game, DRS, with all of those injuries defensively in their last 4, allowing 32.5 points per game. Last night, holding Minnesota to only 9.
Yeah, that was the impressive point here. That's the takeaway of this. And we think Minnesota's going to be able to respond, but also understand the stakes of this football game. You knew so much was on the line, so much emotion from both teams. Where one, talking about the Detroit Lions, Ben, they're going to get that bye week, which is something that I thought they should have taken the week before. They didn't. It helped them there. It got them prepared for the game. Dan Campbell was right in that instance, knowing what was best for his team. We'll see what that goes moving forward. But having said that, the Minnesota Vikings losing this football game, then all of a sudden getting on a plane to go back home, go, whoa, we got to go to the West Coast next week and get ready for a team in the Rams that did take their bye week in week 18.
Yep.
We knew there are levels to this game where Detroit was the monster winner, but the loser with 14 wins on an NFL regular season is now headed on the road. But you know what was interesting, Ben? That handshake at the end where you heard Dan Campbell tell Kevin O'Connell, we'll see you in 2 weeks. I think that's going to happen. But the problem is, do we really want to see this game in 2 weeks after what the Detroit Lions just did to the Minnesota Vikings?
The first one in Minneapolis, 31-29, a sensational game, closer to what we expected, at least with the odds on paper entering. I do just want to get Donnie Rightside official statement. After calling for Dan Campbell's job last week after Monday night in Santa Clara, do you believe he is still safe on Black Monday?
No. He's safe on Black Monday, but I understood this.
Okay.
Like, I've answered this many times. If he wins the Super Bowl, I'm completely wrong on Dan Campbell. He handled this appropriately. If they don't win the Super Bowl, I think he's still the Rockhead of the year at this point. So that's where I stand. Prove it. Yes.
Super Bowl.
It's always been
Move
that.
those goalposts, brothers. Listen, Donnie Rightside does have a lot of Lions ticket on a Super Bowl championship, as do I.
No,
Felt
NFC.
like a
That's
Super
it.
Bowl. Oh,
Not
NFC.
even the Super Bowl. I have
Even
13
better.
tickets on them winning the NFC. That's it. Yep.
13 total tickets, but look at the price to win the NFC, plus 135, the shortest number we have seen on Detroit all year long. Meanwhile, the Vikings, a 14-win team, has to go on the road to end out Super Wild Card Weekend exactly 1 week from tonight in Los Angeles against the Rams. However, DRS, the Vikes, 2.5-point road favorite in SoFi.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's going to be an interesting bounce back. You're going to see the mettle of that team, how they can get up off the carpet after saying we had everything in our sights and now we're on the road, and on the road in a dome, which should help them out, but thousands of miles away against a team resting, and it's Matthew Stafford. Tough one.
The playoff outlook later, how the postseason formed next.
Need help with your NFL picks? Get NFL insider knowledge from Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chow, with Sick Picks at Sports Injury Central. We reveal hidden injury advantages the sports books miss. Our doctors provide insights, and our algorithm tells you who to bet on. Spreads, player props, totals, in-game bets, Sick Picks covers it all. Get a free week now with promo code SportsGrid at SickScore.com.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like nothing.
Live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. Again, as we have said, it's our favorite day to sit back in the armchair and look back on a weekend in the National Football League, especially this Monday following the final Sunday and weekend of the National Football League regular season. All the games that had an impact on that playoff race and postseason seed chase around the NFL draft order, all of that. But, Donnie, it's not just a Monday to sit in the armchair. It's also a Monday around the National Football League known as Black Monday, a day where head coaches tend to look for new jobs or have to start feeling what it's like to maybe be unemployed. As we will tell you throughout these 3 hours, we're going to have a lot of breaking news. As we now have within the last 2 minutes, we've got some news out of Duval County. Doug Peterson, after 3 seasons in Jacksonville, has now been fired by the Jaguars. A team DRS in Jacksonville, as we'll share, that covered in an overtime game in Indianapolis in one of the 2 games this weekend of 16 that had 0 implications on the playoff chase or even the NFL draft order for that first overall pick. A Jacksonville team that covered in 8 of its last 11 games. A Jags team that felt like way back in October, the writing was on the wall for Doug Peterson that he might be let go throughout the regular season. He was not. It got quiet in Jacksonville. Could he have done enough? Could this team have bought in enough with a healthy Trevor Lawrence returning in 2025, the franchise quarterback, for Doug Peterson to stick around? The answer is no. After 3 seasons in Duval County, Doug Peterson has been fired.
Yeah, expectations in the NFL, Ben, they usually get you fired. When the expectations are high for you to compete for division championships year after year, when you have your franchise guy, a quarterback who got paid a lot of money, it's up to you as the coach to hone those skills and make playoff run after playoff run after playoff run. We understand a couple years ago the Jacksonville Jaguars did go to the playoffs. Hey, look, and you're looking at the expectations of that bad division. It wasn't like you wound up and it was Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. And it's like, man, how can we actually compete in this division at this point? It was Houston, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, and Tennessee, who quite frankly the past couple of years hasn't been a great division where if you basically can get to 10 wins, you can win that division, make the playoffs, and get home games here. It happens in the NFL. Yeah. You don't feel bad for the head coaches. They understand it's a zero-sum game. You are hired to be fired unless you are an absolutely dominant football team on the field. Doug Peterson does have pedigree. He won a world championship in Philadelphia and came there sort of the calming presence. I'll get this thing off the ground. It just never happened. And you can't blame injuries. They only look at the bottom line. You're 4-13. You can probably expect to be fired in the NFL.
22-29 overall in his 3 seasons with the Jags, but DRS losing 18 of the last 23 games dating back to last year, and of course a 4-13 mark here in 2024. And I'll say it, entering this season in the AFC South, a lot of hope and optimism for a Texans team that added in the offseason. Houston did end up winning the AFC South for a second straight season. But I thought with a healthy Trevor Lawrence, this Jacksonville team could make a run to challenge in the AFC South. Win total of 8.5. Second best price to win the divisional crown. They came up well short of all of that expectation. Doug Peterson, who has been an NFL head coach now for 8 years, 5 seasons in Philadelphia, a Super Bowl championship back during the 2017 NFL campaign, and after 3 years in Jacksonville, he has been let go. There was a thought, Donnie, that maybe longtime GM in Duval County, Trent Baalke, might be out the door with him. We are getting reports that Jacksonville intends to keep their front office largely intact.
Yeah, it's one, like usually you get a mistake, right? You're a GM, you come in, you hire a coach, didn't work out, or you get a quarterback you drafted high, didn't work out. Sometimes you're going to get that rebound. Like, okay, I'll give you another chance at it. Baalke's had multiple chances at this so far. Yeah. Usually you like to see the complete break because you want the new general manager to come in and choose his head coach. But now you still have the old general manager choosing another head coach here, which hasn't worked out. So I disagree with that. When I'm firing the coach and you had multiple chances as general manager, you're out the door as well.
They paid Trevor Lawrence this past offseason, $55 million deal that at the time made him the highest paid player among a couple of others in National Football League history. He was injured this season. We saw a lot of Mac Jones in the second half of this year. What will 2025 hold for Trevor Lawrence, who now, Donnie, entering his 5th year in the National Football League, will have a 3rd head coach. Urban Meyer, the disaster in his rookie year. Doug Peterson led Jacksonville to a divisional crown and a playoff win in 2022. But 2 years after that, fired and a new head coach in Duval County. The offseason awaits for Jacksonville. How did the NFC South play out on our final weekend of the year? Find out next.
I don't like to toot my own horn, and I know that I'm setting myself up for probably disappointment later tonight, but I hope you were with us last week on the Final Five, because we almost swept the board. We had 2 out of 3 on the power play points with Reinhardt and Matthews. We hit the goal scorer line A. We hit the side with Washington. We hit the total with the over in Toronto and Buffalo. So we had a really good Final Five last week, and I'm hoping that we can now ride that wave.
Only on SportsGrid.
50 points in a fourth quarter for the Atlanta Hawks. Like, what is going on? It's like circus numbers. What are we doing?
And we sound like 2 old heads complaining. It's a tough watch. It's a tough watch sometimes. I don't mind the shooting. I just know the numbers. Like, when you strictly look at it from the numbers in betting, it's getting really hard to bet.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Louis Riddick has interviewed for every job in North America. And I'm not just talking football. I'm talking about every business in North America of any kind whatsoever. Tire companies, grocery store CEOs, shopping malls, insurance companies. What job hasn't Louis Riddick interviewed for?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
The NBA will take center stage once football stops, and people will watch the NBA playoffs and all that. But the standings are whacked out in the Western Conference. Like, Oklahoma City, Memphis, and the Houston Rockets are the best teams in the conference.
You want to talk about a team with overs and no defense? The Wizards are your team. It's unbelievable. They can't make a total high enough. It's nuts.
Sports Rage tonight. Weeknights 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. It is Black Monday in the National Football League at the end of the regular season. Black Monday known as a day that coaches are often let go. As we shared the breaking news, the Jacksonville Jaguars have fired Doug Peterson after 3 seasons. That is pretty much the plan, the run of show here on this Monday morning on the early line. Anytime we get breaking news, we will deliver it to you. Namely, it will be in the head coaching carousel that now spins around the National Football League, but also continue our recaps for how the final weekend of the National Football League regular season played out and what it means for the postseason picture around the NFL. The Jags in the AFC South. Now we transition to the NFC South. At stake on the final Sunday of the season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in pole position to win the NFC South for a 4th consecutive year, simply needing to handle business at home as more than a 2-touchdown favorite against the New Orleans Saints. It should have been simple. It was anything but ultimately, the Buccaneers, a divisional champ in the NFC South for a 4th year in a row. 27-19 DRS, the final score at home in Tampa against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints do cover as a 14.5-point dog. That was a theme of our final weekend of the regular season. Dogs covering in a big way. A total of 44.5 does go over. Tampa wins the NFC South for a 4th consecutive year despite trailing 16-6 at the halftime break. They rallied in the second half, a couple of 12-play drives in those final 2 quarters that resulted in touchdowns and a win for Tampa over New Orleans.
Yeah, and you know what? It was a little bit too close for comfort even in the end. Like, yes, they were down double digits in the first half, but the Saints had the football and were driving and needed Tampa Bay to make a fourth down stop, which they did. Now, heading to the playoffs, Tampa's going to be fun to watch. Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, you know the part there, as well as Bucky Irving. But it also just goes to show you how fragile some of these football teams are getting in. Yes, they won the division. Yes, they're getting a home game. But in order to get that, you saw the 5-11 Saints come to town. Dead man walking probably at head coach. Spencer Rattler coming off some horrible game performances, and they turned into a formidable foe and almost knocked off Tampa Bay. Now, also, Tampa Bay dealing with a lot of stuff as well. Banged up all season long, which included their secondary coming into Sunday, which was down multiple starters, which we don't even know if they're getting back for the playoffs. But say what you want. Baker Mayfield is built for this fight. A lot of teams would have been down 10 and pressed in the second half and threw multiple interceptions and never got it together. Baker was making plays with his arm and his feet. How about this, Ben? 9 carries for 68 yards in a big moment. Yeah. You knew if you needed the first down, Baker was going to get you that first down. You needed that win, Baker was also going to get you that win. So 27-19, it wasn't pretty, but they're division champions. Why? Because Baker Mayfield's their quarterback, and he's damn good.
In an absolute dime to Jalen McMillan, after a first dime to Jalen McMillan, got them inside the 10-yard line. But then McMillan brandished some weapons in a celebration, moved them all the way back. But then Baker finding Jalen McMillan in the end zone with a wonderful toe tap reception for a touchdown. And then after that fourth down stop by the Bucs defense, 36 seconds remaining in regulation, the Saints only had a timeout. So the Bucs in victory formation, right? Wrong. They needed a couple of yards for Mike Evans to have his 11th consecutive season of 1,000 yards, all 11 years in his NFL career with the Buccaneers. Baker to Mike for 9 yards and 1,004 receiving yards this season. 9 receptions, 89 yards in the regular season finale to hit the 1K mark for an 11th straight year. Tying Jerry Rice, by the way, for the most consecutive seasons in a row with 1,000 yards receiving.
It's an unbelievable feat. It really is, because it goes to show you the skill level of the player himself, but also to play the game in the NFL. And there's been multiple seasons he's missed multiple games and still able to get 1,000 yards. That's the battle of attrition, which he's winning. And it doesn't look like he's slowing down. So I'm figuring every single season that he plays, no matter how old he is, he's probably looking at 1,000 yards. But having said this, the moment was awesome. It was $3 million. It was great. But it still is kind of wild, because I understand it didn't happen. But can you just think, like, if they threw that football, and I'm not even saying somebody jumped the route and intercepted it back to the house. How about a tipped football that goes for an interception, and now with the chance for the Saints to try to tie this up? Because this wasn't a Week 18 game that didn't matter. Like, let's just say Cortland Sutton needed his 82 yards. You're up multiple touchdowns. You're forcing him the football late in the game just to get the incentives. That's okay. But if somebody did jump that route or intercept that football and somehow knock the Tampa Bay Bucs out of the playoffs, that would have been unbelievable as a head coach, offensive coordinator, to answer to your fan base, or even Baker Mayfield, who they might have said, hey, look, we're going to take a knee. He's like, nah, I got you, kid. You're going to get this $3 million. We're going to throw this football into the flat. You turn it upfield, and we'll all celebrate. It was a great moment that, boy, oh boy, I'd love to play devil's advocate, which could have turned to unbelievable theater as it played out on the field if it went wrong.
There could have been some serious consequences. It was a safe play design from Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator for Tampa. It almost seemed as the Saints were unsure of what was happening, which was weird because everybody knew what should have been happening. But the celebration after, for what seemed to be a meaningless play in terms of the game result, after the Bucs have already clinched basically their 4th consecutive divisional crown, of all of his teammates celebrating immediately, jumping around him on the sideline, was really cool to see. A staple of that franchise now for 11 seasons, more than a decade in Tampa. The Buccaneers on Sunday night next week, hosting the rookie Jaden Daniels and the Commanders in that 3-6 matchup. Tampa, 3.5-point favorite. These two teams started the regular season against each other. They will now begin postseason play against one another. Again, DRS, it will be a blend of weekend recaps, what it means for the playoff format or the NFL draft, mixed in with some breaking news. I'm not even sure you have seen this yet. Statement from Giants president John Mara. Joe Shane and Brian Daboll will continue in their respective roles with the organization. As disappointing as the results of the season have been, Steve Tisch and I remain confident in the process that Joe and Brian have implemented in their vision for our team. The Giants, a 3-14 season, missing out on the postseason 2 consecutive years following a playoff win in 2022, who will draft 3rd overall, retaining both GM Joe Shane and head coach Brian Daboll. Donnie Rightside, what is your reaction?
I love it. I love it. I'm an Eagles fan. It's sensational. It's wonderful. It's getting an extra Christmas present because, and I like to go back to like my childhood growing up. Giants were a great organization. They really were. And every time the Eagles played the Giants, it was a battle. And sometimes the Eagles got the best of them. Then through the 90s, the late 90s, the Giants would get the best of the Eagles. But it feels like the Giants haven't beat the Eagles in like 30 straight years. Like every year outside of, again, even in a week 18 meaningless football game, the Giants couldn't win this one. They did win the one last year. But the Giants used to be a great organization, a respected one. We said, who's your rival? Is it the Cowboys where everybody hated them? Like, you know what? I love the Giants because of the proximity and how good that organization is typically run. They have fallen so far on hard times where you have Brian Daboll, who I thought probably was one of the better coaches you could pick for your team just a couple years ago. But I started to turn on Brian Daboll when after 1 year, he got Daniel Jones to the playoffs. He could have just said, you know what? Do you see what I just did with a trash can at quarterback? Wait till I get my guy. And they both signed up to make Daniel Jones a $40 million a year player and immediately went into the toilet. They can't draft. They can't get acquisitions. And they're giving up players like Saquon Barkley, going to the Philadelphia Eagles, a division rival, getting 2,000 yards, trying to supercharge their playoff run, which is exactly what you're not supposed to do. I'm not saying they should have signed Saquon Barkley to top dollar because they'd still be a bottom feeder team at this point. But leadership up top has been terrible, and it looks like it's going to go all the way down. How could, as a Giants fan, you look at this organization and the way they're headed down where you keep them? You know what Giants fans would have loved? Blowing everything out there in the GM, the head coaching staff, and saying, you know what? We have a high draft pick. I want a new philosophy. Because if you saw the report yesterday that came out, they were going to wait to meet with the head coach and the general manager to see what their vision is for the future. You had them there for a couple years. You don't even know the vision. The Giants, an absolute train wreck, and I love it.
We will talk the 2025 NFL draft order, but again, the G-Men not selecting 1st overall, but 3rd. A few more thoughts and plenty more reactions up next.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this bet than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red.
Yeah, this is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go yet.
Hot take.
By the time I hit, I guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashing.
Only on SportsGrid.
The Monday after the final weekend around the National Football League in the regular season. Playoff berths were clinched yesterday. Postseason seeds were figured out. The NFL draft order, at least for the 18 teams that will not be in the postseason, has been ironed out as well. But on this Monday, following the final Sunday of the year, it is Black Monday in the National Football League, where coaches and GMs might be looking for a new job very, very soon. Not with the Giants, as we just found out in the last 10 minutes or so. Both Joe Schoen, the GM, and Brian Daboll, the head coach, are going to return in 2025. Donnie, when we were breaking down the early news of the morning, Doug Peterson let go by the Jacksonville Jaguars. You said something that I thought was very fair. When you falter on expectation, it is very difficult to save your job. So with the Giants being 3-14 this year, it wasn't a season New York was expected to be a playoff contender or be a team to make some noise within the NFC East. The win total for the G-Men entering 2024, just 6.5. But even 6.5 wasn't attainable. 3-14 was the mark. The Giants lost 11 of their last 12 games, covering twice in that 12-game span. They got beat bad by the Eagles' backups yesterday in Philadelphia, 20-13. The Giants unable to cover as a 3.5-point road underdog. A game the Giants should have lost and did a week following a game the Giants should have lost as even a bigger underdog and somehow pulled off an outright upset. Because of it, the Giants will draft third overall, not first, which would have been a consolation prize for a disastrous season. And it was always going to be fascinating following both Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll throughout this year, especially after Hard Knocks, an offseason with the New York Giants that did not paint Schoen in the brightest light ever. They were not the two guys to draft Daniel Jones nor Saquon Barkley, but they were the two guys to re-sign Danny Dimes. That didn't work out, of course, and let Saquon Barkley walk to a divisional foe just down the road who had a historic and record-setting year for the Philadelphia Eagles, leading to the Giants, DRS, almost in posthumorously looking back on Saquon Barkley's tenure in New York, not even his on-field production, but what he meant in the locker room, saying, oh, we miss that guy. It was a disastrous failure of a season to the nth degree for the Giants, and now they're bringing back Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. Interesting decision by the Mara family.
When I look at the Giants, Ben, I don't really look at them and say, boy, that's a poorly coached team on offense. Do you know, I look at the Giants and say, how the hell are there other teams in the NFL that have great talent and the Giants have no talent? Like, you get Brian Burns last year. So, okay, you get a pretty good defensive end. You pay top dollar trade draft picks for it. You draft Kayvon Thibodeau. So it looks like you have the semblance of a pretty good defensive line with Dexter Lawrence. Linebacker position stinks. Cornerbacks stink. Safety stinks. Outside of one player on the offensive line, it's horrendous all the way through. You have nothing at running back. Oh, Tracy's a fifth round. Yeah, you have nothing there. You have one wide receiver that you drafted as a rookie that looks like it might amount to something. Then you look at the rosters around the NFL and say, how does this happen? That's really not Brian Daboll's fault. Yes, he's going to have input, which is why I put him down a couple pegs, because when you look at Brian Daboll, he didn't not – Daniel Jones is your quarterback. If Daboll said, I don't want him as my quarterback, trust me, he wouldn't be back. He okayed Daniel Jones to come back, which was really the downfall of the organization. If you moved on from him and got your quarterback, away you go. But now let's set the table again. So the guy drafting these horrendously bad players is still going to be in charge when you're hoping to have a great draft to sort of fill in the defensive lines, fill in the linebackers, the like. You get the point here on this. But also, now you won a game the previous week when you should have just lost out to get the number one pick, because how it's supposed to go in the draft, you need a quarterback, Giants. There's two quarterbacks in this draft. You're drafting third. The two teams ahead of you, they need quarterbacks. Congratulations, Giants, again missing out. You are nothing without a quarterback. You can draft as many talented wide receivers and running backs as you can, but if you don't have the quarterback, none of it matters. And it looks like, once again, the Giants won't have a quarterback again that they can draft as their franchise guy.
Donnie, I was told by a Giants fan just about an hour ago it didn't really matter the Giants falling into pick number 3 when there's a tier of three guys atop this draft. What does it matter if you get Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, or a cornerback in Travis Hunter, because that would be the difference for the Giants, right? Somebody that plays defense, not a quarterback. It's an asinine take, of course, as we know, because you can see the top of the draft board. The Giants need a quarterback. And as of this moment, there are 2 quarterbacks in this draft that are worthy of maybe a top 5, top 10, or first-round pick. Colorado, Shedeur Sanders. Miami's Cam Ward. Oh, by the way, Ward, the odds-on favorite ever so slightly now to be that first overall pick, owned by the Tennessee Titans. The Giants in a very precarious spot already to begin this offseason. DRS, as we go back to the recaps around the Sunday slate to end out the regular season, we mentioned the Buccaneers victorious, beating the Saints, not covering as a 14.5-point favorite, but an outright win gives the Buccaneers their 4th consecutive NFC South title. There was a chance, had the Bucs stumbled, as they were throughout the opening 2 quarters, down by 10 points at the break, that with a Falcons win at home against the Panthers, the Falcons could have won the NFC South. They did not. That's win the NFC South or even beat the Panthers. Carolina in overtime in the A, 44-38, outright as a 7.5-point dog, a total of 48.5. Skies way over. And Donnie, the story of the second half of this season for the Panthers in Charlotte, Bryce Young, returning as the starting quarterback and looking like the first overall pick from 2023. 251 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, 2 rushing scores. That's 5 total touchdowns, 10 total touchdowns for Young without a single interception in the last 3 games for Carolina. The Panthers covered in 7 of their final 10 games to end out the regular season.
Yeah, 2 sides to this one. Liked what I saw out of Bryce Young. Now the goal is to go out and get a high-priced free agent to help him at wide receiver and draft a young, dominant wide receiver to get after it. I'm excited about the Carolina Panthers' future.
Plenty more recaps from Sunday next.
We'll be right back. It's time for a SportsGrid 2-minute drill.
Time now to play a little buy or sell. The Kansas City Chiefs, George, will win their 3rd straight Super Bowl. Are you buying or selling?
They do seem to be hitting their stride. All right, they get now, 3.5 weeks off here, get everybody healthy. Mahomes, the ankle, Kelsey gets the rest. Chris Jones, who missed that game on Christmas, now he gets the rest of it. He's an extremely important part of that defense. So they're looking good. They're covering spreads now, something they weren't doing. Now they're actually winning legitimate games. That being said, that offensive line is still bad. All right, and I think there'll be teams that take advantage of that. No, I'm selling. I'm selling here.
I don't even care if I believe this or not. I'm selling. I do not want to see this. I do not want to see the Chiefs win again. This has not been a fun year watching them. They've gotten lucky. They've gotten some calls. No, please no. Jamar Chase will win the receiving triple crown this season. Yards, receptions, and touchdowns. George, you going to buy or sell this?
I'm going to sell this. I'm going to say, he's great. He's going to have a lot of great numbers here, but I'm going to say no, he won't get the receiver crown. Maybe 2 out of 3. He'll just miss. He'll do a little Aaron Judge. He won't get the average.
All right, I'll play the buy. I'll play the buy card just to play something different in the end, and he was my best player in fantasy this year, so I'll say buy there. I'm going to skip ahead, Sam, to the last one, the running back here. Bucky Irving, who's been fantastic for Tampa Bay, will be a top 8 running back in drafts next season. Is this buy or sell?
Assuming everybody comes back, Godwin, Evans, Mayfield, I see no reason why they wouldn't. I'm going to buy this, Craig. I'm going to buy. I think Bucky Irving is going to be that guy. It's a heavy passing offense, lots of touchdowns. Buy.
Fantasy Sports Today, your weekend source for year-round fantasy insights, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Plenty more recaps from the final weekend of the National Football League regular season. DRS, I only really gave my take on the end of the season in the NFC South, the Buccaneers winning their 4th consecutive divisional crown. But for a while in the opening half in Tampa, it seemed as though the door was wide open for the Falcons. With just an easy win against Carolina, Atlanta could have won the division. Of course, the Buccaneers rallied in the second half, making that a moot point. And Atlanta also lost in OT to Carolina. Michael Penix Jr. in his 3rd career start in the NFL, now 1-2 straight up as the Falcons starter, replacing Kirk Cousins, and was outdueled by the number 1 overall pick from 2023, a resurging second half of the year, and maybe for his career in Charlotte, that being Bryce Young. What was your final takeaway from yesterday's game in the A?
Yeah, 1 year we're into firing coaches. Fire Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris is a defensive-minded head coach. You lost because your defense absolutely stunk this season, which included yesterday. Now, I do think the game probably would have gone differently in overtime because when you're flipping the coin, knowing you're already done for the season because Tampa Bay just won their football game, you saw them lay down out there, which actually cost me. I had a 3-team moneyline parlay, which included the Atlanta Falcons in that game to just win. They're the only leg that went down. But you look at the way the game played out, like Michael Penix is now your future quarterback. 21 of 38, 312, 2 touchdowns here in his second career start, and showed a lot of moxie the week before, bringing your football team all the way back. But once again, in big moments, just like last week, you could not stop anything here. That's defensive problem. That's not offense. Bijan Robinson, 28 carries, $172 scores. He was yesterday, might sell me something to get 150-plus yards and 2 touchdowns for 11-1, and it came and it hit, which was hilarious. Drake London, your other young, talented wide receiver, sort of a triplets effect that you had with the Dallas Cowboys in the 90s. 10 for 187 and 2 scores. You lost that football game. You had almost 550 yards on offense, and you lost to the Carolina Panthers when you had to win, and Carolina was just basically playing for a draft position. That's as embarrassing as it gets here. And also, we're not talking about an offensive-minded head coach like, hey, I got the offense going. Let's work on the defense in the offseason. Let's bring in a good defensive coordinator. You are the defensive coordinator, and you got shelled repeatedly. That's embarrassing.
DRS, let's not mince words. A failure by the largest degree in Atlanta this year, and really dating back to the offseason. When you acquired Kirk Cousins for a 4-year, $180 million deal, you quickly became the odds-on minus money favorite to win the NFC South. Instead, at the end of the year, Kirk is benched. You're going to have to pay him a lot of money, despite him not being the starting quarterback or even on your football team. Sure, there is a bright future for Michael Penix Jr., which I guess, no, it doesn't justify the 8th overall pick at all, because the thought process behind it still so wildly stupid, it still makes 0 sense. But you finish 8-9 despite having a win total of 9.5, expecting to be a double-digit win team and cruise to the divisional crown. And Donnie, they swept the Buccaneers. Despite playing terrible football, it seemed as though Atlanta would stumble backwards into the divisional championship because they had a huge tiebreaker advantage against Tampa. And they still found a way, actively found a way to lose the division. Tough year for the Falcons, an uneasy offseason ahead. DRS in the AFC, it was pretty simple what had to happen for the final spot available in that playoff race. If the Broncos, as a double-digit favorite against the Chiefs' backups, could win on Sunday afternoon in Mile High, Denver was going to the postseason for the first time since 2015. That's exactly what happened. 38-zip against Carson Wentz and Kansas City. The Broncos easily cover as a 10.5-point favorite. A total of 40 and a hook stays under. Denver ends the year a playoff team, Donnie, and a perfect 8-0 against the number, booked as a favorite this season, covering by an average margin of better than 2 touchdowns per game.
Beating who you're supposed to beat. Denver's done that all season long. Now you headed to the playoffs. We're going to be an underdog, so probably not going to win a playoff game, but this is a massive win. This is maybe 2 years ahead of schedule for Sean Payton and his team. You found your rookie quarterback. You made him throw the football 50 to 60 times, it felt like, over the first 3 weeks of his career, and look how it worked out. For a guy that was wildly inaccurate to start, not reading defenses, to open up this game 18 of 18 and finish 26 of 29 with a QBR rating of 97 and a passer rating of of 152. They were really good in that football game. And also, for the people out there that were upset that the Chiefs rested their starters because other teams couldn't get in, welcome to the party here. Win an extra game through the first 17 weeks. You don't put yourself in this position. The Chiefs had every right to rest, and Denver pulverized them and took advantage of that schedule because they came to play.
KC did the right thing, as did Denver. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat and earn a playoff berth. The Broncos did exactly that. Hour number 2 up next.